Pardon me while I have a strange interlude.
There is nothing else. Life is an obscure hobo bumming a ride on the omnibus of art.
Along the misty corridors of time, and in those corridors I see figures, strange figures.
Welcome back, my friends, to the AP Strange Show. I am your host, AP Strange. This is my show, and today's show is brought to you by 5 tons of flax. Why settle for a little bit of flax or even 1 ton of flax when you could have 5 tons of flax? So go get yourself 5 tons of flax today. And returning to the show today, I'm really happy to have him back, is Bob Campbell. He is a comic book creator, a writer, a teacher, and a wonderful guy who has been working for the last little while on Tales of Illuminatus comic books. We had him on back when I think the second issue was yet to come out, and now the third is on its way, as well as a collected edition this summer, if you can support on Kickstarter. We had a great conversation last time, so I'm excited to get back into it again. Welcome to the show, Bob.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you having me. Every time I see a new episode pop up, it's always something delightful. So I know that it's a good company to be in.
Yeah, and there are those guests that like yourself, where if you reach out and having you back on the show is always great to touch back with you, because we had a great conversation last time. So I feel like to the outside observer, we probably sounded like old friends in that other conversation, but like we had never talked before, so that was kind of cool.
There are certain topics that like instantly bond you with someone and like creates like a shorthand of like experience, and I think that Discordianism and Robert Anton Wilson really kind of cut to the chase very quickly.
Well, yeah, they do, because I mean, I know I have some listeners that will hear the whole 5 tons of flax thing and know exactly what that is.
Right, yeah.
And some of them are going to be like, what? But yeah, Discordianism is great like that, and the Robert Anton Wilsonisms,
Yeah, for sure. I'm surprised at how far-reaching it has all turned out to be. I really thought it was much more niche when I was younger.
Right.
But I've never done a show or any sort of art appearance where I haven't found those people. They seem to be distributed all over, and judging from where we're selling books, it's pretty equally distributed from the United States over into the UK and the European Union. It's pretty well distributed.
Yeah, I would say so. And I mean, in the UK, it's huge. I think we talked
Seems
about
to
that.
be, yeah.
Yeah. One of my best friends is over in Coventry, and we kind of bonded over Discordianism early on.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, I think the first message I ever got was just "Hail Eris," and I was like, "Oh, all right, we're pals now."
Yeah, exactly. There is a little bit of trust that happens with that, because you kind of know that they're going to be at least like a flexible enough person that it's not going to be confrontational in any weird ways. That does seem to be
Yeah.
a commonality there. That they're going to be pretty playful and flexible, and it's not going to. It's not, yeah, like I said, it's not going to be confrontational. It's not going to be a bummer in most cases.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like when I first started getting online to talk about and write about the subjects that I love, which is, it can be loosely described as paranormal or weird or UFOs and stuff like that. I kind of expected that the people into those subjects probably would be more like that, but it's only like a very small portion.
Yeah.
And usually they're people that will reference Robert Anton Wilson or Discordianism. But I think it's gotten bigger now. I think it's these days is might be a bigger following than ever. I don't know.
Yeah, no, for
Yeah.
sure. And it makes sense because like it's kind of eaten regular culture. Like it has really become the standard to
Mhm.
kind of view things through um if not a skeptical, even a surreal lens,
Yeah.
because you can't really trust the first order of information that you see presented to you in any reliable way. You'll
Mhm.
always have to kind of interpret and kind of try to de-spin whatever you're getting. But that's also a fool's game, because once you start playing that, you're basically writing fan fiction. And so it makes sense to kind of latch on to like a genre that can deal with that kind of reality, something that is kaleidoscopic and doesn't necessarily always cohere. And I think we've been there for a while now. And I think, as people find their sea legs in
Yeah.
this level of uncertainty, I think I would say Discordianism and maybe Logic kind of appear as pretty buoyant floats that can be of some use in this situation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what I've thought for a long time, and I'm heartened to see more people kind of grab onto it. But these are very uncertain times. I mean, the one that I've struggled with the most, I think, is AI these days, and it's rampant proliferation because I had a moment of like sitting on the couch and an ad came on for Copilot, and it was created with AI, and I was like looking at this guy, and I'm like, that's not a real person, and it just like triggered
Right.
this
Yeah.
weird like paranoiac response in the back of my mind where I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Uh,
so it's just destabilizing, and it's weird because I think I'm like prepared for it, but AI is just one of those tipping points for me where I'm like, I'm becoming unmoored now. I can't trust anything.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And to a certain degree, like when Discordianism kind of wanted this situation. They wanted this like kind of complete saturation of uncertainty. I don't think that situation gave rise to the breakthroughs that were assumed to happen. But it's kind of funny, like the degree to which like they had no idea what was on the horizon on terms of like boundary dissolving,
Mhm.
like the world turning itself upside down in terms of what you can and can't believe. I mean, like at best, like they were dealing with like the onion level of
Right.
like pranks and stuff like that. But yeah, so they built these tools that turned out to be very useful. But like I said, I don't think they really grasped how useful and how necessary they would be. Or maybe they did. Maybe there was like a sense that this was always coming. But we're definitely in a more advanced version of that media landscape than that it ever existed in the '60s. Obviously.
Right. Yeah. It's really strange. And I had another moment of a weird thought with very recently they're signing into law making it easier to test and use psychedelics for medicinal use, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just watching the orange guy sign that thing and then be impressed by his own signature. I'm like,
Right.
man, imagine if somebody just dosed that guy. I wonder what would happen.
Yeah. Well, one thing that is kind of interesting about the loosening of restrictions on psychedelic drugs, I think we've learned for sure that they're value neutral tools, that they
Mhm.
don't kind of come with any inbuilt therapeutic value. You have to create the set and the setting
Yeah.
that like makes that possible. Because like you know, there's these tech entrepreneurs that go and take ayahuasca, and the insight they get is, how to create a monopoly and leverage workers to exploit them at maximum efficiency. Like, it's not necessarily the same kumbaya message that a lot of us received. So it's clearly, yeah, like I said, I don't think the message is inherent within those molecules. I
Yeah.
think there needs to be a context within which those experiences happen that
Mhm.
reinforce those kinds of breakthroughs. And Leary knew that,
Yeah.
I think, pretty clearly. I think uh, the set and setting, I hope, becomes the standard operating procedure as these things kind of become more widely used and available. And I assume it will. And so long as the intentions here are helpful, that'll be the standards. Because the idea that you could like dose the water supply and get good results, I think has been mostly disproven because
Right.
yeah. All right. At least that's my guess. There is the idea that each different type of psychedelic has its own personality and its own kind of inherent ride. Um, yeah, but I'm just not sure that it's inherently beneficial without putting in work beforehand.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. I just think, probably a lot of people are very happy to see that there's steps in the direction of moving towards medicinal use for a lot of it.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure. No,
yeah,
that's what Rawl was working
right.
towards for a good portion of his life. Was just
Yeah,
not even that there should be any particular outcome, but just that research should continue. And obviously it should. Leary's prison experiment alone points towards a monumental capacity for rehabilitation.
yeah, yeah, for sure. What's your take on microdosing? I think I found this really interesting because it never would have occurred to me. Because usually, if you take like mushrooms, you just want to blow your head wide open.
Yeah. So I think that the point of psilocybin is to get the doors blown off.
Yeah,
I wonder. I've never tried it. I've never tried microdosing, so maybe people are getting something out of it. But I think that more suggests that the experience is has something more to do than creating imprint vulnerability. And for me, I think the psychedelic experience is about creating imprint vulnerability and then intentionally re-imprinting in some specific direction, or at least creating imprint vulnerability and letting the situation kind of wash over you and
mhm,
taking some sort of lesson from it. But I suppose there could be some sort of advantage to just being halfway in there. But I think all my like best psychedelic experiences were always kind of like the big show was the point.
right. Yeah, you kind of have those breakthrough moments. Have you ever had have you ever had the experience where it seemed like a shared mind or telepathy? Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, for sure. Um, I always downplay it. Like I always
well, I
I
think
I
everybody does.
notice,
Yeah.
yeah. I observe that it exists, and it presents as a mystery, but I always find that it almost is intentionally evasive. It's never reliable. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it pops up so intermittently that it's just a quick wink to be, to kind of remind you that everything is interconnected, but it's not interconnected in any way that is exploitable in my experience.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's not
Um,
meant to be exploited, I don't think.
Right, exactly. So it just peaks up, reminds you that there's this interconnection, um, but it has to stay as a maybe. I think. I think if you lean too hard on it, it will let you down and leave you excessively vulnerable. I think that the entire thing with spirituality is I think it has to not be relied upon. I think it has to just be a grace that pops up
Mhm.
when whenever it happens to want to. But if you try to build your castle there, it's going to collapse. The paradigm shift that I'm kind of like most interested in right now, and I think it kind of is like the stone that hits the most amount of birds is the like realization of the holistic worldview.
Mhm.
And I think that that's the one that gets through and kind of addresses the converging crises. Because there's this fantasy that you can kind of separate yourself from other people's problems.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's actually functionally possible
Yeah.
because we're so interconnected and everything is reliant on everything else that you just can't let one part of the system be gangrenous while the other part is luxuriating. And I
Mhm.
think that's kind of like the fantasy that drives a lot of the current power structures. That if we could
Yeah.
just amputate the gangrenous part, we would be fine. But it's not possible. And
Right.
I think that if we start making decisions based on the health of the entire biosphere, that we'll get better results than how do we boost this part of what is essentially an entire holistic being.
Yeah. I think it's difficult, honestly, partly because of the language. Because
Yeah,
when you use a word like holistic, I think for a lot of people it conjures images of like new age, like kind of hippy dippy stuff, and like heard you
sure.
say it's all interconnected, man. Like
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. Yeah.
so people just
I
kind of think you're a flake, but there's a lot to that because it is like I mean everything is reliant on everything else. There's ripple effects for everything. Like
yeah. Yeah.
nothing
For
exists in a
sure.
vacuum. You know?
Yeah, no, yeah, that's my favorite of the Sanskrit words, praticya samutpada.
Yeah,
Everything is being simultaneously created through its relationship with everything else. And it's one of those things where you're correct. If you explain it in grandiose terms, it probably loses some of its impact. But it's also if you're trying to do big picture thinking is it's kind of a little bit necessary. But I think you would notice it on the microcosmic scale as much as the macrocosmic. That like if in your family someone's not doing well, them not doing well is going to affect everyone else and make everyone else also not do so well.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And then
right,
so if you're and then it doesn't even if you're at your job or on your sports team on whatever kind of interconnections you have, you can't isolate dysfunction.
yeah,
I think you have to deal with it and try to support it as best you can. Otherwise, the outcomes are just going to get worse and worse because it's masking the issue as opposed to dealing with it. And I think that's kind of as a society what we've kind of gotten too good at is masking problems
right,
and instead of actually dealing with them, and somewhat due to things like uh greed and selfishness, but I think more uh potently just because it's hard, it's difficult. It's not there's not necessarily easy answers to all of the questions that plague us.
Yeah.
And I think working through that difficulty is kind of the task at hand. Um, and that, I think we make a lot of decent progress, at least on the small scale. I think it's much tougher to make progress on the large scale, but I think on the small scale, there's miracles that happen every day. I see them. I am a part
Yeah.
of them, and I think if we just keep doing them, I think things will, if not get better, at least continue to be a mixed bag, which isn't a half bad deal.
Right. No, I agree with that. Um, but as you say, you can't just isolate little things here and there and try to cordon it off and act like we'll just not worry about that part or mask over it because it will come home to roost eventually. And
Yeah,
it's
no, for sure.
doing what you say allows us to really confront some of this as systemic issues because sometimes these things are not so much a bug but more of a feature
Yeah, oh,
in
no,
the
for
bigger
sure.
systems.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about the impulse towards like individual success
yeah.
and how that kind of stunts the potency of collective action.
Hmm.
And that, if we could just decide on one specific thing that we wanted, we could probably get it. Like,
Right.
and I'll give you an example. So,
Yeah.
my younger son is taking AP US history. So I've been like going through the US history textbook and all this stuff with him, and like the March on Washington, where Martin Luther King Jr. gave the "I Have a Dream" speech, they showed up with specific demands.
Right.
Like they wanted an end to Jim Crow laws, and they wanted a jobs program, and they got it. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? They showed up and they said, "We want this, and we want this." And because they were able to do that, they got it. And I think sometimes with I don't fault our current like protest situation because everything is such a fucking mess. How
Right.
do you boil it down to just two things that everyone can agree on? Because everyone kind of has their own pressing issue that is the most important at the
Hmm.
exclusion of all others. But God forbid if we could show up somewhere in force with one or two specific things, it would happen.
Yeah. Well,
So
yeah. With the
well,
caveat that this is the dumbest
yeah,
timeline, but yeah.
right, yeah, yeah. But I think at a certain point, history tells us that imagination followed by organization produces results. And I
Mhm.
think to a certain degree, and I'm repeating myself, um, the time for like deconstruction is kind of over.
Right.
The edifice has been dismantled. It's gone. And it's
Yeah.
kind of now time for construction to build something in its place. And part of why things are so weird right now is because there's nothing. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Right.
And I think it's time to try to come to some sort of consensus on what we want the new thing to be because the old thing is gone. It is very thoroughly gone. And I think to a certain degree, the impulse is still there to rip it down. And it seems like there's something there. There's something pretending to be there, but it's not really there.
Right.
That's a con game. That's a shell game. That's just, someone's looting the like remains of what was once there. But that's not a thing that's newly erected,
Hmm.
at least in my opinion. So I just to throw an idea out there that it's I think we've got to build something new, and that the ground is already ready for something new.
Well, yeah. I mean, there. I think we had talked about this before, but the status quo is no longer an option. We tried. I feel like we tried going back to status quo for 4 years.
Right, right. Yeah. And
And nobody found that very satisfactory either, because still
right,
nothing was
right.
getting done, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, yeah, and it's just the first steps are tough
right,
because, everything is so shaky, and everyone is kind of polarized in various ways. And so consensus building is especially difficult under these circumstances. And so like I said, that's why I don't fault the current efforts for being sloppy. I think that's a necessary first step. I think it makes sense that it has to be sloppy at first, but I do think that some decisiveness um, should emerge, which is a little bit tricky, because I'm coming from the maybe logic perspective,
right,
where you kind of want to, you have to recognize the fallibility of your individual point of view. So if anyone's like, no, that's completely wrong, I'm like, all right, wait, let me think of it. Let me see where you're coming from. And
right,
it's hard to build certainty or at least decisiveness while also allowing for uh, valid differences of opinion. But the thing also with maybe logic is it's not supposed to be a complete clusterfuck unknown. There's degrees of probabilities, and I think we can start to lean into probablies somewhat.
yeah,
I think it's
right.
okay to decide on some probablies and see how far we can get with that. I think I think healthcare is one of those things that a lot of people could agree on. That I
Right.
think some form of universal healthcare might not be a bad first step. I know it wouldn't be everyone's first choice, but it might be top five for most
Yeah.
people.
Oh, it's
And
up there. Yeah.
right, you know what I mean? Like, there are like, if someone said, "Well, no, there's actually this is more important to that," I'm sure there's cases to be made, and maybe it's not even that one. Maybe there's another one, but I do think if we could all get a little bit more specific and flexible, that you might see at least a little bit of progress. At least in my brainstorm fantasy.
Well, right. I mean, I think to get even more fundamental than that, I feel like even as divided as people seem to be, that there's basic principles that we could all agree on. There must be, right?
Yeah,
Like they're
yeah,
foundational
for sure.
principles of humanity,
Yeah,
like
yep,
that we should go
yeah,
back to and revisit and work from there, you
absolutely.
know? Yeah.
And I will say, like, to be honest, like, for the most part these days, like, the people I encounter are lovely and
Yeah.
like seem to be pretty principled and pretty with it. This fantasy that everyone's like a bunch of like crazy brutes. I don't experience that. I don't run into those people. I experience a very astute and kind of agreeable populace out there, and I think that um, it's kind of very likely that we could, in fact, as people have done for thousands and thousands of years, come to a new uh, arrangement of society, and one that
Mhm.
hopefully benefits more people than the last one.
Yeah. I mean, I would hope so anyway.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, because so a lot of these divisions are really pretty illusory, and as you said, like a lot of people are just fine people, at their core they are,
yeah.
but they're easily swayed too. Like I feel like,
Yes, yeah. That is also true. That is also true.
and I'm not trying to say I'm better. I mean, I definitely
Oh
have
no,
my
yeah,
yeah,
believe me.
but people are very susceptible to talking points and propaganda and divisive rhetoric, and I see it out in the world where everybody wears it on their sleeve now, and then it makes people distrustful of one another, like they don't even
Yeah,
want to
for sure.
engage.
Yeah,
And I'm absolutely prey to that. Like I went to the mall recently, and the car in front of me at the in the parking spot next to me when I parked was just like all Trump bumper stickers and like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like the back the blue Punisher sticker and stuff, and I'm just like, oh my god. So like if I
Yeah.
saw that person and bumped into him, it's like I would not talk to him. Like
Yeah, no, for sure.
I might have words
I
for them, but like, and I'm like, yeah, but I'm susceptible to that too because if I bumped into that person inside the mall, apart from their car, like we could have
yeah,
a very nice exchange. Who knows, you know?
I do think there is an advantage with the way the current regime has positioned itself.
Mhm.
It creates the opportunity to oppose them very, very easily without even naming yourself as opposition.
Right,
Because anything you do that includes kindness, compassion, and joy is automatically in opposition to their enforced worldview. You know
right.
what I mean? Like
Yeah,
you don't have to call your party the fuck Trump party for it to for that message to get across. It just
right.
has to embody those values which are in opposition to that enforced reality, that it's communicated no matter what. And
Yeah,
I think that that's a pretty good advantage to have in that kind of pushback, that you don't even have to you don't have to come up with a logo, you don't have to come up with a clever name, you just
yeah,
have to be that way. And it is a form of resistance that can be contagious because
yeah,
it doesn't necessarily invoke like oppositional forces, because you're not even naming yourself as opposition. You know what I mean? Like
right.
you would, and they've even kind of fallen into the idea of being anti joy and
Yeah,
like compassion. They literally are against compassion. They've said it. And you
right.
know what I mean? So like all you have to do is be compassionate, and you are opposing their reality, and their reality is very weak and very vulnerable to attack, and must be maintained constantly. You know,
Yeah,
entropy requires no maintenance, and
yeah,
just it's crumbling as we speak. And they're frantically trying to shore it up, but it can't be done. That's the problem with fascism. Doesn't not work because it's mean. It doesn't work because it doesn't work.
right.
It fails at every time.
Yeah, people don't like it
So
very much.
yeah, exactly. It's
As
a
it turns out.
bummer, and yeah, and because I was reading the Wilhelm Reich Mass Psychology of Fascism book, and it points out that fascism can never do anything for you. It can only punish your enemies. It can only wreak
Yeah,
havoc on the people you hate. But eventually, it runs out of those people, and the circle narrows, and all of a sudden you're in the crosshairs.
right.
It inevitably happens. So, in some sense, we've managed to weather a decent portion of the storm. And I think that uh, we'll manage the rest. And hopefully, it'll be sooner than later that we do get to start building something new, and we do start to get to come to a new consensus on how we want to live. Because I don't think it's this way. I don't, you know what I mean? I don't think you're
Well,
gonna.
yeah,
I don't
I
think there's
really
that many people that are happy with the way things are going.
no, and well, I think people are tired too, and I think
Yeah.
everybody's tired. Everybody on all sides is tired at this point, and
Right.
we're
Yeah.
all just kind of, doom scrolling or watching the news and saying, "What is any of this?" You know, like
Right. Right.
so
Yeah.
I think people are eventually there's going to be like a point where everybody gets fed up on all sides, and they're like, you know what?
Yeah, I think
Let's
so.
just do
Yeah.
something different at this point.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I think that is that feels inevitable. I sometimes get pushed back when I see certain, like, new tragedies come across, but
Right.
by and large, I agree. I think that's the way things are headed.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, it can only get so dumb. There's got to be a bottom to
Right,
the
yeah, yeah,
dumbness.
I agree. I
I keep
agree.
thinking we've hit it, but then we just go further.
Yeah, yeah, no, it is impressive that we've managed to reach certain levels of surreality.
Yeah. Not good, but
No, certainly
yeah.
not. But yeah, I mean, it's almost like a cancer treatment. It feels like
Yeah.
it's we're just being bombarded with this radioactive solution,
Mm.
and we just got to survive it. And I think we will, and I think we have, and I think we always have. And the more we get enthused about what's coming next, I think the faster it comes. I think that's the thing that has been kind of beaten out of a lot of people is enthusiasm.
Yeah.
I think people have trouble picturing the next world in a way where it's one that they're excited to live in.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the imagination part comes in, that we need a little help imagining a better tomorrow. And then we need the organization to actually start to bring it about. And I'll tell you what I've been doing. I've only done it a couple of times, but in-person art events
Yeah.
are a really, really good way to break through the noise.
Mm.
Um, and we, with Todd Purse, the other artist on Tales of Illuminatus, we've been doing these Comic Fest events in Wilmington, Delaware. We've
Yep.
got this beautiful venue, the Queen on Market Street in Wilmington, Delaware. What we did was we got a space. We offered free tables to local artists, and just everybody came. They put up their tables. They put on a show, and it's the most fun I've had in forever. And it's just this thing where you just create a space for people to gather and to share their work, and they do, and it's really fun. And it kind of is like a throwback to the old bazaars, and
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
the idea of let's put on a show. And um, so I think that that is actually a pretty decent model of how to start coming back together, is to just put on some sort of gathering
Yeah.
and let those connections start to grow again. Let those be like, I think we maybe leaned a little too hard into cyberspace, that it's no longer really the place where the playing field is leveled. Remember, there
Oh,
was a time
not at
where
all.
that
Yeah.
was
Yeah, I
like
do.
I mean, like when I first, like when I built my first website in the year 2000, and put my comics on there, it was a leveling of the playing field. It's very hard to get material out there, especially I don't know, if you ever published stuff back then, the minimum print orders were oppressive. You couldn't
Right.
make a zine or a comic and get less than 1,000 of them. And if you're getting 1,000 of them, it was very expensive. And so there was this thing where it was very hard to kind of compete in that space. But now it's kind of reversed, and it's hard to break through online in
Right.
kind of a similar way. The gatekeepers have reemerged as these walled garden, algorithmically derived feeds,
Hmm.
and it's hard to break through. Um, but in person, you're in person, it's right there. You know what I mean? Like there's no necessarily like um impenetrable barrier to getting seen. And I think
Yeah.
that the real world might be ready for a reinvasion from the creative types. Never, not that everybody left it entirely, but I do think that maybe um, I know at least I probably relied too much on the virtual space that is
Yeah.
no longer hospitable to those efforts.
Well, because virtual space is becoming increasingly artificial as far as I can see, even without the discussion of artificial intelligence, just like gamed out algorithms and search engine optimization and uh,
Yeah.
the pay to play way that social media developed. Because even something as simple as Facebook, I used to, when I played in a band, I could make a Facebook event, I could share it around on different pages locally, and then people would see it online. And nowadays, it's like if you make events, that just gets buried in notifications. Nobody sees it.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
if you have
Yeah.
a page for your creative work, you have to pay for that shit to get it as a promoted ad that may not even go in front of eyeballs that are remotely related to it. Or you know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
so as you're paying money for stuff, and then meanwhile, when you scroll, it's like you may or may not see things that you're even remotely interested in, you know, and it's
Yeah.
all paid for. You know, people had to pay to get it there, so it's all promoted stuff all the time. You know, so
Right.
it's
Like
yeah,
like on Instagram, I go on Instagram to see what like the people back home are doing or what family in faraway places are up to. And I do not get that anymore. I get nothing but like these kind of like manufactured personalities
yeah,
uh doing weird performances that I am not interested in whatsoever. And yeah, so I just think that there was this opportunity um, that has kind of passed in some ways, or if it's not that the, I mean, it's not like the internet's completely useless, but I think a more hybrid approach is probably um, appropriate at this point, as opposed to all in on one place or another.
right, yeah, and I'm heartened to see, you know, like and hear about events like the one you're discussing, like comic book, you know, conventions on markets and things like that. Um,
Yeah,
I think there's a growing hunger for third spaces where people can meet. That people are coming up with creative new ideas for it, which is great because you know, just speaking for where I live, as far as like nightlife goes, it's like you got bars. That's about it, and that's
yeah,
sad because you
I
really should have a third space that's like
for
all
sure,
ages. You're not, you know, like sober, and you're not necessarily like have to pay money for stuff. Like, and some of that is coming
absolutely,
back, which is nice. You know, I'm
yeah.
happy to hear
Yeah,
about it in other places.
yeah, I was just talking with my kids about this because they're teenagers now and looking for stuff to do, and it's terrible for kids these days. Third spaces, and yeah, I was like, yeah, even when I was a kid, it was like you can go bowling or you can go to the movies,
Right,
and or you get maybe someone has a basement that you can
right.
hang out at, but it's like yeah, there's just like not enough to do, but like we can definitely come up with things to do. So I think that's a good growth area is to start experimenting more in real life and bringing some of that creative energy offline and into the real world.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's become kind of like trendy to be cynical and misanthropic to a certain point where like you see a lot of online memes that are just like, "Oh, I have to deal with people today," or like, you know,
Oh right, yeah,
I'll
yeah,
be hiding under my under my blanket over here, you know. Like
yeah, yeah. You know what though? I feel like that cynicism is like it's more of a question than a statement. You
yeah,
know what I mean? Like I think like there is that feeling, but I think there's like a question behind like should I be feeling this way? You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like what they're really expressing is I have anxiety. That's what those
right.
statements mean. They mean I have anxiety, and it's okay to have anxiety, and it's okay to like not want to go out. But I think probably most of those people would enjoy if they found the correct situation. And I
Mhm.
think it's just about developing the correct situations. Um, and I mean, like a little bit like everyone kind of has these like ideas for businesses they want to create or like entrepreneurial pursuits they want to do. Like there's all this pent up creative energy,
Mm.
and I think we need it. I think we need people to actually start chasing those whimsies, and not in a destructive way where they upend their lives, but um, I don't know. I think if there was an arcade in town, I think people would go to it. If there was
Yeah.
more shows in town, I think people would go. I think yeah, I don't know. I think the world that we want is fully within reach. It's just we just actually have to do it. I think that's the
Yeah.
idea. I think we just actually have to take the risk and do it. And you know, not that people aren't. If anything, I'm talking to myself and encouraging myself to pursue those things even
No, I
more.
do a lot of that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. As a Rosetta Stone for when I'm talking, whenever I say people should do something, I mean me.
Right.
That's what I mean. I mean I. So I'm not criticizing you or anyone within earshot. It's
Right.
all directed right back at me.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are kind of ready for that step, you know. I know for me
Hmm.
personally, I would love to open like a mystery shack, you know, just like a
Be
weirdo
amazing.
museum or something. That would be so cool.
Absolutely. It would be
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
Yeah, no, you couldn't beat it. Yeah, and there's such a lack, like what I would give for there to be a friggin' used bookstore in town. Do you
yeah,
know how much I would love to go to a used bookstore? They're just not around. And do you know how many people would love to open a used bookstore? Like,
right.
you know, that's a passion project beyond belief. Um, yeah, I think that's a thing that was kind of taken from us in the name of convenience, in a
Yeah,
way. I think that's and it's also it's like one of those things where it's like in bulk, a Walmart gives you, in theory, cheaper products, but it extracts so much wealth from your town that the trade-off isn't worth it. On the surface, it looks like you're paying less for laundry detergent, but you're paying more in like the loss of like genuine local culture.
yeah, yeah, and the soul crushing march with the shopping cart through a gigantic box store with other people
Right.
who are miserable, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
because it was kind of nice to have these things separated out, and I think that's coming back in some places. You kind of get like boutique stores and very specific niche things.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
reminded at the moment of an old quote from Kurt Vonnegut about going out to buy an envelope, and his wife asking like, "Why don't you just send for some, like get a whole box of them?" And it's like, it is like because I'll get to meet like amazing looking babies and see somebody's dog and like give the fireman a thumbs up when he drives by, like.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he said, you know, we were put on this earth to just fart around, and I'm like, yep, that's pretty much what it
That's
is.
yeah. Yep, absolutely. One of my favorite things that I sell a bunch of stuff on Etsy, and my trip to the post office every day is like the highlight of my day. Like I love the process of packing things up and going seeing the people in there, and there's always some sort of drama going on. And you know, one day I go in and some guy's having trouble with a money order, and then the next day I go in and he's still having trouble, and I'm like, hey, how's it with the money order? And he's like, ah, you know them, and
Yeah,
it's I don't know, it's just like a enjoyable slice of life that I think I could do to have more of.
yeah, because otherwise you're just like, you know, in a cave on your computer,
Yeah,
you know, like.
right. Yeah, yeah, for sure. And to be honest, being at work doesn't feel like being in reality. It's different. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
you can be in public at work, but you're playing this character and it's like it feels insincere in a way that doesn't scratch the itch that I'm talking about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I have surprise moments in my workday where I feel like every once in a while I feel a connection with somebody, and I'm like, that's
Oh
nice.
yeah,
I
yeah. It's
like
not
that, you know.
impossible. Yeah,
But
that's for sure.
but a lot of the time, and I mean increasingly these days, I feel just kind of anxious and like eager to get the day over with. Like, get me out of
Right.
here.
Yeah.
I just need to
Yeah.
get back
Yeah.
home. But then it's like, all right, well, now I'm just sitting at home. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Um, but yeah, I mean, connections with people. It's this is where we're at these days, where you say stuff that's just very simple and it sounds profound, but it's like,
Right.
connect
Yeah.
connect with people because it's cool.
Right.
Like, go
Yeah.
talk to somebody face to face, look them in the eye, keep your
Absolutely.
phone in your pocket.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so much just
No.
seems insincere these days. Like I said, with the artifice of being online, like I feel foolish like taking a selfie these days, or like
Sure.
taking
Yeah.
photos when I'm at a place. Like, I was at a concert recently and everything looked really cool, but and normally I would take a picture of the band or something. I'm like, I don't want to. I want this to be like it used to be. Where
You're
you're at a
right. Just in
concert,
the moment.
it looks cool, it sounds cool, and I'm having fun, and then I'll have that memory. I don't need the picture on my phone that I'm not going to look at again.
Right. Right.
Yeah, it's not even a physical picture; it's just a digital file on my phone.
Yeah. Yeah. I've kind of been. I'm fascinated with kind of antiquated technology, and just in terms of like keeping tools available at hand, because I feel like we might have discarded some more advanced technology in
No, we absolutely
favor.
did. Yeah,
You know what I mean? Yeah. So
I
I like.
do.
Uh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I have a great example of that actually, because
Yeah.
I always, Facebook and Instagram both have little carousels of reels of stuff that you may or may not be interested in. And, one of them suckered me in where it was like this mind blowing photograph. And they're showing a photograph from like the 1920s or something. And they're like, look at the astounding detail. And they just keep blowing up the picture and blowing it up. And you have um, the really high, I don't know if fidelity is the right word for it, but the picture is perfect no matter how much you blow it up.
Right. Because
And I'm
it's
like,
film, and yeah. Yeah.
I know. I'm like, wow, this person is just unfamiliar with the concept of film. Like, film
Yeah.
was actually
Yeah.
really good. It's like
Yep.
it was a really good
Absolutely.
like, digital
Yeah.
doesn't do that. It just
Uh-uh.
approximates it, right? So like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a great example right there. But this guy's mind was blown because he had never really considered photography.
Right. I remember watching years ago watching like high def versions of the Twilight Zone, and it
Yeah.
was like the old TV show, and it was just crystal clear, way
Yep.
beyond anything of the day, because everything around that time, everything was filmed on video,
Yep.
and video doesn't scale up very well, and it's just fascinating that in the 60s they had better clarity than we do
Well,
currently right now.
for the early zone, they used film. I think like they actually
That's what I
used
mean. Yeah.
right. Yeah,
No, I meant yeah.
because they switched to videotape for one season, and it's a huge nosedive in quality. Like,
I'm
there's a few
sure. Yeah.
episodes where it just feels like normal TV, but the other ones are
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
cinematic.
Right.
They're
Right.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So like in like we have this thing in the second issue of Tales of Luminatus where there's a cassette tape. So we're introducing the cassette as a medium in that world because it's around like 1976. And so my friend Dan recorded a album of like rock staples, and we
Hmm.
put out a cassette tape of the music, and we've been selling the cassette tapes. And it's this idea that like we used to have this medium that you could manufacture on your own and distribute as an object very easily,
Yeah,
and that just doesn't exist anymore. And that might be a kind of thing that would be useful these days, to have something that you could just manufacture in your house and have even like the old CDRs
yeah, oh yeah.
were a thing like that. And even I've been thinking that the newspaper was kind of amazing. Like it
Yeah.
was like you know what I mean. Like we have a hyper local newspaper that prints once a week, and I just absolutely adore it. And the idea that like back in the day on Sunday you could get a full page Little Nemo and Slumberland Windsor McKay masterpiece
Yeah.
along with a full page Crazy Cat by George Herman, and just like that's kind of like a thing that would be great now. And the technology still exists, but the interest doesn't. And I don't know, just thinking that there might be some things worth reclaiming and some old ways that would serve us better, not just out of nostalgia, but because it actually produces a better result. I'm not sure which ones there are, but I think I would love it if there was a good local radio station. That doesn't exist currently, but if it did, I would
Well,
listen to it.
right. Well, these things, there's always a tendency towards um, homogenization and corporatization of media. So, I mean, at some point, you didn't have DJs picking music on the radio anymore. It got bought by some corporate enterprise, and there was some board that decided what got on the air and what didn't, and the playlist was already set, and DJs just became personalities that
Right. Yeah.
and then and if that, it depends on the station, but and then like local newspapers are harder to find now. They're all getting bought up by the huge conglomerates and stuff, and it doesn't have the local flavor as much as it once did. I mean, some places again are better than others probably with that. I'm fortunate to have some really good local journalists here
Oh,
that are
nice.
very appreciative of. But um, uh, yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right, and I think part of that is the limitations, right? As an artist, I'm sure you'd agree with this, that sometimes being boxed in and having limitations, only so much page space that you could use. You
Yeah.
have to get creative about how you use that. There's an art to it,
Yeah,
right?
you actually get better results from limitation, and I think in
Yeah,
some ways it's like there was this old Terrence McKenna talk, and someone from the audience, and it was literally in 1999, and a guy in the audience is like, well, what do you think about the day when every single TV show is available on an index, and you can just scroll through them and pick what
mm,
you want to watch. And they anticipated the idea that you would just never arrive at anything, which is
yeah,
what happens. You know what I mean? Like there is that thing where you just like no, 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 and yeah, it's weird. There's this idea that like we've achieved this like total availability of information, and it's worse
yeah,
than no, it's I fully I recognize that it's very possible that I it's just nostalgia, that I'm just remembering
right.
how I experienced media as a younger person. um and that's why I think a hybrid solution is probably the way to do it. I think there would be nice. It would be nice if both could coexist
Hmm.
and support each other. And I think that having local media is something that would be very, very valuable, and that you would get very interesting results from the limitations, like you were saying, because
Yeah,
the broad spectrum, anything goes, everything available, has diminishing returns, it seems.
yeah, it does. And I mean, even getting back to the forms of media, it's funny because you had mentioned like cassette tapes and CDRs. Like, I was talking to my son about this because, this is like ancient history to him. This is like my dad talking about playing with a ham radio when, when I was a kid.
You're right.
But but yeah, I mean, there was something wonderful about mixtapes and mix CDs, either or, because like you had a limited amount of room, right? So you had to
Right.
be like an
Yeah.
artist, and if you were making you were still making something for your friend or a girl you liked or something,
Absolutely.
um,
No, it was an art form.
right. And you always felt like a master if you could fill that tape up like right to the end and not
Right.
have the
Yeah.
extra
Yeah.
space at the end, like
Absolutely.
do the math with all the track lengths to make sure that would work.
Right. There was something too, because some songs need a few listens before they really crack through.
Yeah.
And so like when you would buy a record and like you just spent $10 on a record, you weren't
Mhm.
going to not listen to it a bunch of times. And then
Right.
sometimes, after that fifth, sixth, seventh listen through, you'd access deeper cuts that I
Yeah.
don't know that I would ever find these days because I'm not going to listen to a song that I find boring. I'm going to skip right by it. And you know what
Right.
I mean? Like that's that thing where it's like having too much of a good thing kind of spoils your appetite,
Yeah.
and you don't get to unlock those deeper cuts that take a minute to saturate, to hear what's going on within them. So I think somehow dialing back a little bit might produce better results on a lot of fronts.
Yeah. Yeah. I
I
mean,
don't
I
know
have
how
seen,
you would achieve it, but
no, me either. I think it would have to be a conscious effort to do,
yeah, yeah,
because it is possible to do all these things we're talking about for
of
yourself.
course, yeah,
There's
yeah,
little ways
yeah.
you can. And I mean, the fact that there are a lot of record collectors out there still, so if you're listening to a record, you're not going to keep getting up and skipping a song. It's like really obnoxious to you. You might as well listen to an album
Right,
all the
that's
way through.
true. Yeah,
But,
yeah.
but it
That is
is
an
nice.
encouraging sign that there's a
Yeah.
market for records like that.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, when I go to concerts, people have vinyl LPs just out at the merch table now. It's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
nobody's selling CDs anymore because people just don't really listen to those. But yeah.
Yeah, I saw an interesting, I heard an interesting story on the radio about once a tool goes into production, it never leaves availability. You
Mm.
can still get buggy whips. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they still exist, and that we're just like adding and adding and adding tools to our repertoire. And yeah, so it'll be interesting to see which things we left behind that may turn out to be something that's useful. I mean, like sort of like how the animated GIF outlasted Flash.
Right.
Like like Flash was supposed to be the next big thing that was going to be how media was displayed digitally, but
Mm.
it came and went, and the animated GIF, the first one, is still going strong. So you know,
Yeah.
there may be other gems in the dust bins to be dusted off.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of our technology these days has become disposable in an accelerated way where I find it to be incredibly wasteful. It does
Yeah,
worry
yeah,
me,
for sure.
like
Yeah, yeah.
because back in the day you could build your own computer tower and people would change components and things like that and upgrade their computers. And these days you can get to a certain point with a laptop and then it's time to get a new
It's
one. Like,
done. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I built my kids' computers for them, and they are one of them is completely in a ship of thesis situation, and the other
okay,
one is getting close. But that's like kind of the rare exception. Unless you have a PC tower, you're throwing your phones away, you're throwing your tablets away. Everything else is just kind of junk. Laptops are probably the worst offender. Like it's kind of silly that they don't make them so that you can kind of go in and like swap parts easily. um
yeah. I do often wonder how much of that is like real innovations that are meaningful and how much of that is just like artificially um like the artificial obsolescence kind of thing,
Yeah, I lean towards it being mostly that. Because it does seem like everyone has adopted that like in shitification business model of like giving less and charging more, and seeing how far you can get before people complain too much.
Right.
And then going just a little bit further, it seems.
Yeah. How far can you go before people start throwing Molotov cocktails at your house?
Right, exactly, exactly.
Then maybe go a little further, so
Right, exactly. Just a little bit. Just All right. Well, once you know where the line is, you just go a little bit further, and then you'll be all right.
But yeah, I mean, speaking of holistic approaches to things, I do and have been very worried for a long time about how excessively wasteful a lot of our tech is. Um, because somebody had made the argument to me at one point, or I had heard the argument at least, that like when people talk about data centers and AI, they're like, well, you waste a lot more data and energy scrolling through Netflix and all this other stuff.
Yeah, but
And
that's
I'm
my
like, yeah,
intuition as well. Yeah.
but I'm like, I'm not for that either, though. Like,
Right. Exactly.
I don't need
Exactly.
Netflix
Yeah.
to be automatically playing video for me everywhere. Why can't it just be like files on a screen that I can just still images even? Like I could just
Yeah. Yeah.
access,
Yeah.
because a lot of that is really advertisements having to force their way through. A lot of that energy is spent just with like the stuff that's functionally supposed to give you a better user experience and also cram as many ads in as possible. You know,
Sure. Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I'm really not happy about the environmental effects of a lot of our tech anyway, right? Like,
Right.
I
Right.
could, these aren't mutually exclusive. Like, that's bad too. You're right. That's bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. That is my intuition though. A lot of times, like, yeah, a lot of I'm sure social media consumes a similar amount of like energy and does a similar amount of environmental destruction.
right.
I think that it's all part of the same machine. And I think, to a certain degree, uh, yeah, we probably should start weaning ourselves off of it to a certain degree. At least in whatever ways are helpful and hopefully while maintaining the benefits, because I do think there is something that I think has led to breakthroughs by having everyone in communication with one another,
Yeah.
even if it's created a lot of static and a lot of other collateral damage. I do think that there's a benefit for everyone to be in contact with each other in a literal fashion. But yeah, but I think probably we shouldn't let it destroy the biosphere if we can at all help it.
Yeah. And I mean, and then there's the physical cost of it too, where a lot of, um, well, first of all, the mining of rare earth elements that it takes to create the stuff, and then the disposal of it when inevitably becomes obsolete.
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah, that's what my son was saying the other night, was that basically you kind of can't switch everything over to solar because we don't have the rare earth materials to actually do it. It's kind
right,
of like a fantasy.
right,
Similar with the electric cars. Like we just
yeah,
don't have the ability to replace the entire fleet. You would like it's insane that we're not going towards electric public transportation. That would clearly be the like better outcome. It just
right,
can't be privatized in the same way, so we don't get it. Which is
yeah,
another thing that like I think a consensus could build that would be preferable would be mass public transportation.
yeah,
And, like the idea that we're like making zero progress on that is kind of tough to swallow.
yeah, yep. And I've always made the argument that kind of biodiesel was a better way to go than electric vehicles.
Oh, interesting. I think I've heard that before, but are the emissions aren't bad
No, the
with
emissions don't hurt anything. It's just
no,
basically
nice.
like
Okay.
you're burning up organic stuff,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
oils and grease and things like that. You just need to be able to refine it.
Oh, right
Um,
on. Okay.
so I feel like before there really were electric cars. I mean, I think there were hybrids and stuff like that, but people were toying with it, and I was always kind of hopeful that that would become more of a thing. But
Yeah, yeah.
it's not really a sustainable thing because you can't go fill up with biodiesel just anywhere. But for a short period of time, there were places you could.
Right, right. No, that's
Um,
good to keep in mind as a possibility, though. Like,
yeah,
I think hybrid approaches across the board are probably what's going to happen anyway. So
yeah,
I think any available thing that helps is worth considering.
yeah. And then everywhere you drive, your exhaust smells like French fries. So,
Yeah, it's an added benefit.
but I've always thought that'd be a better way to go because the electric vehicles, I mean, you're still drawing on the grid when you're charging the thing up the whole time,
Yeah,
right? So,
very
like,
true. Right.
um,
It probably like at some point, if we could like undo uh, the way that we've structured this country to
right.
rely on like consistently traveling 50 miles every day, I think
Right.
would probably help things pretty considerably. Um,
Yeah. Well, there's a
yeah,
whole lot of things we need to do over with, I think.
I mean, I think probably what happens is things break, and then you have to rebuild them within the scope of what you can actually do, and then that's how changes like that become possible.
Mm,
Only once things kind of break down uh, in their current form can you then replace them with something more sensible. Unfortunately, I think there does probably have to be various rock bottoms hit before more sensible solutions arise. Because
yeah.
otherwise, I mean, like entrenched power is entrenched power, and it's there for a reason, and it has the resources to stay there. But
Right.
once they no longer work, then you can be like, oh, you know what? We don't need everyone to be traveling this far every day. We can kind of localize a little bit better. And I think that's kind of like the another like silver bullet is
Mhm.
localizing things a little bit more and uh not necessarily having to like exist as such a sprawling community. I think we could probably tighten up a little bit, and that might produce better outcomes as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I tend to think so. Yeah. But I mean, I think things do kind of have to get dire before people are exploring new ideas, even because it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
if everything's fine and you just walk into the
Right,
room and
yeah, yeah.
hey,
The path of least resistance wins every time,
yeah,
unfortunately, or fortunately in some cases.
yeah, you don't want to walk up to the powers that be. Hey, how about some universal basic income?
Right, yeah, yeah.
Oh, go fuck myself. Okay, I will. See, I think that would help a lot. That would,
Yeah, no, I think that's another one of those. You could convince me that's the thing that everyone should rally behind, and I would agree with that as well. I think that
but
would.
healthcare at this point would pretty much be the same thing. Like if
I
you,
agree. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It would produce very similar outcomes. It would create a similar amount of like uh, lateral movement socially, to not have your healthcare tied to your job and to not have your health be like an albatross around your neck. I think that would
yeah,
free a lot of people up to try some of the more creative like adaptations that we've been talking about,
yeah,
that
yeah,
if you didn't have to worry about where your uh like medication was coming from, then you might feel a little bit more emboldened to open a coffee shop or to something along those lines.
yeah. No, absolutely. Um, yeah, and having it tied to an employer is absolutely insane. I think that's the
Yeah,
worst
no, that
system.
that's yeah, that's clearly a manipulation tactic meant to keep people vulnerable to their employers. That's clearly a scam.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Um, I'm fortunate to be covered under my wife's policy, and every time I've worked somewhere and didn't take their health insurance, they're like, "What? What do you mean? What do you mean you're not going
Oh,
to take it?"
right. Yeah, yeah.
They really wanted to have me under their thumb with that one. I think
Yeah,
I don't know.
no,
Yeah,
absolutely.
but it's a good leverage to have.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah. Well, I did want to double back because we kind of moved right past something that I was going to ask you about because that's how conversations work. But
Of course, yeah,
you were
yeah,
talking about the Mass Psychology of Fascism by Reich, and that's one
yeah.
I haven't read, but I was wondering what your thoughts on Reich are more generally, like more broadly.
So I think that the insights of armoring seem pretty like spot on. That does seem to be a an issue with how people react to our hostile environments and how it creates like kind of a feedback loop that makes them feel worse and
Yeah.
worse and like kind of creates like a recursion where
Mhm.
you're like you feel bad and so you like tense up and you shield yourself from the world and then you feel worse so you shield even more and you feel worse and I think that and the ideas of the emotional plague, I think also makes a lot of sense. This idea that because the mind and body seem to clearly be in like interact like a the somatic system seems to influence each other.
Mhm.
If you're in a poor mental state, it's going to lead to a poor bodily state, and vice versa. So they are kind of um, feeding into each other. And I think there is an idea that there's kind of like a contagion that like if if everyone around you is in a shitty mood, it's going to be tough for you to stay bright and bubbly because you're going to be
Right.
taking on all of that negative energy. And so this idea that there's an emotional plague brought on by the harsh conditions of what is honestly a pretty primitive society that leads to the kinds of inner turmoil that a lot of people experience and that has been kind of generalized as the human condition. I think that all that stuff in his work makes a lot of sense to me. I don't know about the orgone stuff. That's one of
Right.
those things that's a little bit. It's I like it as like a sci-fi concept. I like it as a thing in a story or a thing that works as a metaphor. But the idea that it's like a measurable physical energy I think that's something that would well then prove it. Then you know what I mean. Like then
Right.
I mean, if it can be measured, measure it. If it can be used to help people, do it. Then do it again. And then once it's confirmed, then I'm all open for it. But it seems to be something that's more of a phantom, and like we were talking
Yeah.
about before, that kind of spiritual energy that's never there when you call it but
Right.
does show up just enough that you can't discard it. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
Like it's
Yeah.
maybe it's there, but it's not reliable enough that I'm going to base any sort of worldview on it because it's not consistent enough. And then I do think that he went a little bit off the deep end at the end, and that all the conspiracy stuff was him because you don't come up with the idea of the emotional plague if you're not experiencing that yourself, right? That's
Right.
definitely a call is coming from inside the house, and so I think what happened at the end essentially is that he succumbed to his own armoring and emotional plague, and I mean he was pretty well persecuted
Mhm.
by various groups, which then caused him to act in a way where people would push him away, which was probably hard for him to tell if it was further persecution or if he's the one that's being like kind of destructive. And I think that's kind of why he spiraled out at the end. I do think it's wild that they burned his books. I
Yeah,
guess
that's really strange.
I do find that very odd. I think because I think it was the time period. I think they were just so afraid of the populace getting out of control. There was that
Right.
whole era where they were so concerned with controlling everyone because essentially, from what I understand, they were afraid of what happened in Germany happening here. Because I mean, to a
Mm.
certain extent, like you can blame Hitler as a personality, but it takes people being excited about a person like that to
Yeah.
create that problem.
Right.
There's a million Hitlers on this planet right now. We just don't listen to them, most of them.
Right.
Um, you know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
it a charismatic figure is only as damaging as the populace that is willing to be seduced by them. And so
Yeah.
they were very, very concerned that that could happen in the United States.
Mm.
And because and this is actually this I've been rereading the historical Illuminatus chronicles, and this is something that Rawl talks about a lot. That the French Revolution wasn't created by anyone; it was just societal pressures. It's like a rain storm building.
Yeah.
There were jobs were going down, the price for food was going up. Once those two figures become too far from each other, it's the conditions for revolution. It doesn't take anyone
Right.
going around saying, let's have a revolution. It's just if
Hmm.
people are too hungry, there becomes a revolution. It's a and so I think to some degree uh it was they burned his books because they were so concerned about controlling the populace, and that was um just a like kind of paradigm shift that was a little bit too unpredictable, I think,
Hmm.
for them. I mean, there could be a million reasons why it happened, but that's my intuition is that
Yeah.
they were like that they just didn't want uh, people believing strange things that they didn't understand.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's a fascinating figure. I mean, I could probably do a whole show on Reich by himself with somebody, but uh,
I remember one time I found one of Wilhelm Reich's early books. I forget which one it was, but it was no, it wasn't even one of his books. It was his letters,
hmm,
and I read it. It was at the University of Delaware Library, and I found a batch of his letters, and it was when he was my age at the time. So I was in my early 20s. He was in his early 20s, and he wrote exactly like how I do.
oh,
Exactly. With all the exclamation points and all the like all
yeah.
that kind of like hyper verbose shit. It was like reading my own letters. It was uncanny. It was uncomfortable
Wow.
actually. I was like, oh shit, is that how I come across? I should dial it back a bit.
Yeah. I found one of his early books at one point. It was the Bion experiments. Because
Okay, yeah.
before he developed the idea of orgone, he was talking about cells called bions that you could
Interesting.
actually
Yeah.
observe, and then that kind of mutated into his orgone ideas. Um, so it was it was a weird little snapshot that escaped being burned, I guess, that
Right. Yeah, yeah. Well, so
ended up at a used bookstore. Yeah.
what's your take on the orgone? Is I like because you might know more about it than me. It sounds like. Is there anything there, or is it more like my impression where it's kind of a little loosey goosey?
It's definitely loosey goosey. I mean, it sounds nutso, but I've believed much weirder things in my life.
Sure.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, I love the idea of cloud busters and orgone accumulators. If I had the opportunity, I would sit inside of a orgone accumulator and try it
Oh,
out and see
sure.
what
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
I'd
Yeah.
be a guinea pig for that. And
Yeah.
actually, there's a museum and where his old place up in Rangeley, Maine was now. It's like
Oh, yeah. I've heard of this.
you
Yeah.
can actually stay there. It's called Orgonon.
Yeah. Yeah.
the Wilhelm Reich Museum, and so someday I'll go up there and spend a night or something. Um,
Yeah.
it's just in a weird part of Maine that I'm never near when I do go to Maine, but
Sure.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but yeah, no, I'd like to know more. I've read a bit about him, and I do have Ra's book about him.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. The play, Wilhelm Reich in Hell, right?
yeah, right.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. I
have
love
that.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll have to read that at some point. And I do have a pretty good biography about him that I read a long time ago. But yeah, I mean, as far as the orgone ideas themselves go, I'm not totally sold, but I do find it fascinating. I like the UFO kind of angle to it as well, because apparently when
Sure.
he
Yeah.
used cloud busters, he could summon flying saucers or destroyed them with,
Oh,
with
interesting. Oh, I
yeah,
didn't know that. Oh, I love
yeah,
it.
that was part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. Um so I think he's a fascinating figure. I'd have to look
For
into him a little
sure.
more. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I would say there's probably something equivalent to orgone. There, you know what I mean? There's some
Yeah.
sort of like energy that circulates amongst everyone. Um,
Yeah.
I, I I I don't know that we understand it, but I would not be surprised if at some point that was something that was discovered and worked out.
Oh,
Because
yeah. I
why
mean
would there
people
be? You know?
yeah, I mean some people would call it key probably, like
Yeah, yeah.
qigong type stuff, and yeah, there's a million different ways to look at it, but I think it goes back to what you had said earlier, where a lot of this stuff is transient and
Right.
playful, like where it's
Yeah.
just a
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
a
for
phantom,
sure.
so you
Yeah.
can't really quantify it, and you'll never be able to, but you know it's there.
That's how I am with magic as well.
Yeah,
Magic is
right.
something that can for sure produce results, and that's the problem with it.
Yeah,
That's the main problem with magic is that it appears to work. And
yeah,
I think the only reason why anybody gets into any trouble with it is because of that fact, because it does work.
it
And
does work. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Um, but you can get yourself in trouble with the belief system that comes from the experience of magic working, I think.
yeah. Oh, you can
I
absolutely scare yourself, and yeah,
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Or the idea of like kind of like cities,
uh,
SIDDHIs. I think that's something that is not necessarily great for your mindset if you think you have more power over reality than you actually do. I think
right.
that's something that can come back and bite you.
Yeah, but it usually does, and then most of us learn from that and don't do that
Right.
again.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Well, I feel like we've been going for a little while now, and this has been a blast. It's always fun talking to you, Bob.
Yeah, no, right back at
But
you. I appreciate it.
um, so as far as the new issue of Tales of Illuminatus goes, where are we at in the book for this one?
So what I've done is we're taking a break from the Illuminatus trilogy, and
Okay,
instead we're circling back to the historical Illuminatus chronicles.
all right,
So I'm picking up from where Rawl left off at the end of Nature's God, with Sigismundo back in Europe and about to cause problems for the aristocracy in Europe and those that would like to make him the king of Europe, and he is not interested in the job. And
okay,
so we're yeah, so we're trying to continue where Raw left off because Raw had a vision that he wanted to have a continuous timeline from Sigismundo in the late 18th century, all the way to a like outer space space station
Hmm.
habitat. And so we're going to try to kind of thread that needle for them and have the timeline expand a little bit. And then Todd's pages, he's going to go back to Masks of the Illuminati with Albert Einstein, Aleister Crowley, and James Joyce,
Okay.
and their initiation of John Babcock that happens at the end of that novel. So the idea is we're kind of playing around with the other corners of the Illuminatus universe and
Cool.
kind of expanding things a little bit. Because I felt like, people that have read Illuminatus, it's kind of boring to just do a recitation of the novels
Hmm.
without any sort of, um, other avenues of exploration. So I wanted to bring something new to the table in addition to our staging of the trilogy.
Yeah. Well, that sounds great because it's you're getting into some deeper cuts there with the
Yeah,
raw
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, it's a lot of esoteric stuff. Digging into some of the weirder parts of the mythos. Yeah, I've spent the past couple of months just kind of pouring through all the material, and yeah, it is set up. If you haven't read those books, it's fine. You don't
Yeah.
need to have read those books. um, but if you have, I think it'll be pretty fun. A lot of people have been clamoring for the book. The fourth book in the Illuminatus Chronicles was going to be called "The World Turned Upside Down," and one
Mhm.
of the most frequent comments I see about Raw is people asking where that book is, which unfortunately does not exist, but maybe this is the next closest equivalent, which is trying to continue from the setup that he leaves at the end of Nature's God. So because at the very end of Nature's God, he clearly sets up all the pieces for the next part of the story. And so I'm just kind of running that story forward from the setup that he leaves us with.
Oh, well, yeah, that's awesome then. Yeah. Well, I do recommend people check it out. Where can they go to find all this?
So talesofelluminatus.com will have so we're doing pre-orders for issue 2, or I'm sorry, for issue 3 right now. So we're doing a Kickstarter campaign. Fortunately, we already hit our goals, so we're green lit to move forward. But we're taking pre-orders. I think the campaign runs until June 22nd. I think we'll take late orders right up until the book goes to press. So the book's going to go to press in July. And then, so that'll be it for issues 1, 2, and 3.
Mhm.
So we're not going to go back to press on issues 1, 2, and 3 after this order. Because in the fall, we're going to collect all 3 issues together into a nice trade paperback. So we'll have a nice like book with a nice spine that can sit on a shelf and kind of serve as the cornerstone that we build the rest of the series on.
All right. Well, that's awesome. Yeah.
Right on, yeah.
Okay, and if people want to follow you personally, you have your own website as well, and yeah.
BobbyCampbell.net will have all the relevant links. My stuff's all over the place, but if you go to BobbyCampbell.net, you'll find my newsletter and my comics pages and stuff like that. Oh, one thing I did this spring, I created a Illuminatus video game called
Oh.
Cthulhu's Wake. It's very basic games. It's like mini games. It's kind of like because I taught computer science for about a decade, and so it's all the kind of like starter coding games that I would teach to my
Right.
students. So there's like a Flappy Bird game, there's like a apple catcher game, there's like a breakout game.
Nice.
There's all kinds of stuff. When the internet goes out and you have the dinosaur that jumps over the cactuses on Google. Have you ever run into that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so there's that, but it's the dolphin jumping over the pyramid, like on the cover of the book.
Oh, nice.
So like I said, there's 9 different mini games on there, and I'm real happy with how it turned out. And it's basically Illuminatus versus Cthulhu. So
Mhm.
the Illuminati are waking up Cthulhu, and it's up to Howard and Hagbard to lull Cthulhu back to sleep. And also up to the player of the game
Right.
has to
Right.
lull Cthulhu back to sleep. And yeah, it's pretty fun. So it's that's also talesofluminatus.com. If you scroll down a little bit, you can play the games.
Oh, that all sounds wonderful.
Right on, yeah.
So listeners, get on that. Check that stuff out. So, but thanks so much for coming on again, Bob. This was
Oh
great.
yeah, no, thanks for having me. Thanks for talking out. I think we solved most of society's problems, so they're welcome.
Yeah.
So everything we said, get on that, and
Yeah.
hopefully by this upcoming Thursday, you'll start to see some improvements around the world. Easy
No
as
need to
that.
thank us,
Yeah, no,
just
I checks made payable to.
yeah. All right. Well, you have yourself a great night and we'll talk again soon.
You as well. Thank you so
All right.
much. I appreciate it.